Floyd Mayweather, Paulie Malignaggi, and a whole heap of other American fighters, trainers, pundits, journalists, etc. all came out publicly and said that Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder. Millions of people all over the world were caught up in this mass hysteria and outrage, calling the decision a robbery. But what was I saying on my channel, in my videos at the time? I was saying, no, actually, it wasn't a robbery. It was a genuinely close fight with a lot of nip and tuck rounds, and it could have gone either way. When Andre Ward fought Sergey Kovalev the first time, same thing. Mass hysteria, millions calling it a robbery. But I was saying no. It was actually genuinely close and could have gone either way. When Canelo fought Triple G the first time, same thing again. People screaming robbery, and I was saying no. It was actually genuinely close. Boxing fans love being silly and calling just about every close fight a robbery. The only close fights which boxing fans tend not to call robberies are the ones where neither fighter has any kind of following. That's when they're able to be objective and say, oh, actually, it was close. But if you've got a close fight where one or both of the fighters have got a following, the cries of robbery will inevitably follow the decision. But I will continue to be consistent and call close fights for what they actually are, which is close fights. Callum Smith versus John Ryder had loads of close rounds which could have gone either way. The only rounds which were blatantly clear were 11 and 12. The other 10 were all nip and tuck. The rounds I gave to Smith were mostly in the first half of the fight. I felt like he was a bit more active, particularly with his jab. He was winning them marginally. And outside of 11 and 12, the rounds I gave to John Ryder, again, he was winning marginally. Neither man in the first 10 rounds landed many clean, damaging punches. It actually wasn't a particularly great fight I fought for the first 10 rounds. Only the 11 and 12th were big rounds for anybody. Okay? So if you had Smith winning by a couple rounds or you had Ryder winning by a couple rounds, I've got no issue with that. The only issue I have is with the margins that the judges gave it to Smith, because they did show clear bias, and that was definitely disturbing because it demonstrated that no matter what John Ryder did in there, they were never going to allow him to step out of that ring with a championship belt around his waist. So that was disturbing. But to say that John Ryder won clearly, well, you don't know what you're looking at. You don't know how to score a fight. I mean, I've had some jokers in the comment section saying, Hatman, you don't know what you're talking about. I had John Ryder winning by 1 or 2 rounds. How could you not see it? What on earth are you smoking? So you've only got Ryder winning by 1 or 2 rounds. So that means your scorecard is definitive, right? So that means every single round that you gave to John Ryder, he won clearly, and there's no way you could give it to anybody else. Man, you're a joker. I've already said in my post-fight video and in this video, if you had it to Ryder by a couple rounds, cool. Smith by a couple rounds, cool. But if you've given it to anybody by a wide margin, or if you're saying that you've given it to one guy by 2 rounds and there's no way the other guy could have won, again, you don't know what you're looking at. I score fights fairly. And in fact, the habit I've picked up over the past couple years is to rewatch the fight the day after. Because when you're watching a fight, you can be excited. So I like to watch the fight a day after in the cold light of day, often with the commentary off, and look at it and actually pay attention to who's landing what. Because you'll actually find a lot of these fights people are calling robberies turn out not to be robberies when you watch it again in the cold light of day. When all the excitement is gone, when you don't have a horse in the race, when you don't really care who won, you're just going to look at the fight and look at who's landing what. You'll find actually, Nobody was really landing anything significant. It was all nip and tuck. And as such, rounds are open to interpretation. So if you score one round one way, you have to find it reasonable that somebody else might score it the other way. Yeah? The only issue here, people, with Smith-Ryder was the margins the judges had Smith winning by. That's the issue. And that is an endemic issue in boxing when it comes to house fighters. And all these jokers, Wilder fanboys turning up on my post-fight video for Smith-Ryder saying, oh, look at you being biased in favor of Matchroom, saying it wasn't a robbery. Well, if I'm so biased, how come I didn't say that Deontay Wilder got a gift decision over Tyson Fury? Because I could say that, right? If I wanted to try and beat Wilder with that stick, I could jump on that bandwagon and say, oh, well, Fury was robbed. But no, I scored a fight objectively, irrespective of who the participants are, irrespective of who's promoting it. I scored a fight fairly. Whether I like the fighter or not, whether I like the promoter or not, whether I like the network or not, doesn't matter. I'll score the fight fairly. And let's not pretend that there isn't controversial decisions on PBC shows. What, you didn't see Charlo versus Korobov? What, you didn't see Porter versus Ugas? And I've already talked about Wilder versus Fury. Controversial decisions happen on every network. On all promoters' shows, you get controversial decisions. We wish we didn't have them. You know, but that's the nature of boxing. That's the nature of the politics. Because when money is involved, people have biases. That's the way it goes. Judges, should I say, have biases. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it there, people. If you're expecting me to join the bandwagon and get caught up in the mass hysteria, calling every close fight a robbery, you're on the wrong channel. I'm going to continue being consistent what I've been doing for all these years. Very rarely do I call a fight a robbery. Again, off the top of my head, I called Chisora versus Helenius a robbery. Pacquiao Bradley 1 was a robbery. You know, and a few scattered robberies throughout the course of 10 years that I've been on YouTube. But most of the time, it's just boxing fans being silly, getting caught up in mass hysteria. Yeah. I suppose it depends on how you define robbery, because if you're looking at the bias that the judges have in favor of Smith, well, there is a suggestion of corruption there, definitely. A strong suggestion of corruption. But to say that Ryder won it clearly, you don't know what you're looking at. Watch the fight again. I urge you. Go and watch the fight in the cold light of day. Put your ego aside. Watch the fight in the cold light of day. Put your biases aside, particularly if you hate Matchroom. One of these jokers who thinks that you're trendy because you hate Matchroom. Donut. Put your biases aside, your ego aside. Look at the fight objectively. Yeah? You'll find that most of these robberies are not really robberies. They're just close fights. Anyway, I'm out.